Shepherding Chaos, the Retail 247 podcast. Embracing change in the world of retail tech.
Hello, I'm Martin Schofield. Welcome to episode 2 of Shepherding Chaos, a gentle look at all things retail technology. In this episode, we are again joined by Alan Morris, an original founder of Retail Assist and now non-exec director at Retail 247. And we're going to tackle the subject of customer service, how technology can underpin consistent and empowered customer service. Alan, my actual view in this area is that retail should be a career and not just a job. A good salesperson can make a massive difference to sales, and a quick story to illustrate that. When I left Debenhams at the end of the 90s to join Burberry, I thought, ooh, posh company, better go get myself a decent suit. So rather than heading to the Debenhams suits department, I went to a boutique around the corner, a menswear boutique. I set myself a budget. I think it was £500 back in the day, which is quite a lot of money, to buy a suit that would be acceptable to the Burberry world. I went in there, and long story short, I left having bought a suit, 2 shirts, 2 ties, a pair of shoes, to the point where the guy serving me, looked me up and down at one point and said, "Sir, could do with some new shoes to go with that suit." The point of the story is I left having thought I'd received marvellous customer service, and I left having spent twice as much as I anticipated. So that was single guy, because he knew the product, because he talked to me, it made me spend more. So my point here is that in the physical world, technology should only be used to empower service, enabling interaction with the customer. This guy I talked about didn't need any, but today we can perhaps empower the masses with the collective wisdom of the few really good salespeople we have. So, Alan, how do you see technology enabling customer service?
It's an interesting story that you tell, and one that I think most people can associate with, and it's sadly lacking in good customer service. In my opinion, is sadly lacking in most retail outlets today. But to actually answer your question about what the role that technology will play, I think technology underpins good customer service, or it should underpin good customer service, by providing data that can be used in a physical store environment to keep along your storyline of supporting the person who's actually interacting with the customers. So the idea that you've got consistent product information, good product information, that goes beyond description to actually give the salesperson some narrative to talk to the customer about. But then, of course, having consistent pricing information, having accurate stock information, having accurate information about fulfillment options and so forth. So customer service in a physical environment provided by a very competent and sales professional, technology can certainly help that sales professional in their quest to make a sale.
Yeah, I think it was, actually going back to Debenhams again, John Horner, who was chief exec of Debenhams at the time when I was there. I remember him in a presentation saying if we could deliver technology to take the knowledge of the top 5% of his salespeople or his buying people or whatever department we were talking about at the time, and encapsulate that into technology to deliver to the rest, then we'd make millions. So it was about taking the best, systemizing that in a way, but then giving it to the others to enable that same level of high service everywhere. And yeah, to your point about having data accessible and the services accessible, I completely agree with. And we have, to a certain extent, dumbed down the role of the sales professional, and really we need to address that. At Harvey Nichols, I was on the board at Harvey Nichols, and many a time we talk about how we were represented by the people on our shop floor. They were the best thing that made the biggest difference to customer service, and we were all about customer service. Then the next agenda item would be, can we afford to pay minimum wage? And there's a massive difference between what we expect from the people on the shop floor as to what we are prepared to pay them for, basically. And we've, to a certain extent over time, we've then used technology to try to supplement that gap in service provision.
It's interesting, isn't it, that in some countries around Europe, if being in a customer service environment is a profession, or for a lot of people, where whether you're working in a restaurant or in a shop, it's a profession, something that you train for, and something that you stick with and you progress through the the various levels within the organisation, but actually you're still in a customer service role. Whereas I think there's tends to be a tendency here. You might be right about the minimum wage, that it tends to sales roles in stores tend to be filling jobs, and they need to be seen as more than that. Retailers.
Yeah, I tend to call it. I tend to talk about a job rather than a career.
Exactly. But when you consider that, when you consider the plight of the high street, where footfall is down, and I'm excluding the current time in footfall at the moment on the high street is for non-essential retailers is zero, because we're recording this in the middle of lockdown too. But if we just smooth out it'd be great if we could smooth out the COVID pandemic and go back to last year. The high street footfall was falling. Number of shops was falling. Therefore, when people come through the door, it's absolutely critical that conversion rates increase and average transaction values increase. And go back to your analogy of your Savile Row tailor, or wherever the tailor was. That guy, his conversion rate was obviously high, and his average you went in to spend £500 on a suit and ended up spending probably double that on all the accessories you got. So, to me, if you've got to offset falling numbers coming through the door, you offset that by increasing conversion and increasing ATV.
And then the trick of that guy also, as well as doubling my spend, I left thinking, I'll go there again. That was great service. I mean, I didn't, because I went to Burberry and got a massive discount, but that's not the point. It's the trick of getting more for the business, but also giving more to the customer.
But you can't just turn around to somebody and say you're a salesman or a salesperson now. You've got to go out there. You've got to sell, because you've got to be able to give the person the tools they need. And that brings us back to technology. Technology's got a big part to play in that. There's a term that's used a lot, which I don't particularly like. The term the principle's fine. It's the term I don't like, which is clienteling. The fact that you've got a device in your hand that you can take the customer through a journey and show them through a storybook about a particular product. You can imagine back in the day when you bought your suit. You can imagine the salesman showing you through various catalogues of ideas and so forth. That's a great use of technology to increase the chance of selling something and increase the value of what they're selling. Over the years, I've been involved in a lot of projects looking at improving the customer experience. And I've looked at the different measures that people put in place to measure customer experience. And we were talking about this before, but one of our joint pet hates is when you walk out of an environment and there's a smiley face, a nonplussed face, and a miserable face, and you press whichever one, you're left with the expression. How did the experience leave you feeling? And the reality is, you press the smiley face. Well, did you buy anything? And if you didn't buy anything, then how does a retailer interpret that data? We've got great customer experience because 9 out of 10 people press the smiley face. Well, how much did we sell to them?
Indeed. Yeah. And just picking up on your earlier point, when we got these sort of, as you say, clienteling systems or systems that are enabling that technology to engender that feeling of either happy or sad, those technologies have to deliver. So it's no use just having technology deployed, I don't know, to show what stock's available in the store or the warehouse, if you can't then rely on that as an accurate interpretation of stock or the ability to get that stock to the customer. So it has to be a comprehensive and to use the obvious expression, omni-channel experience for that customer. So you have to be able to use the technology to deliver value.
Well, I think all technology, regardless of where it sits in the product journey or the customer journey or wherever it sits in the infrastructure, should be cost justified. If it costs X, then it should deliver Y as a benefit, and Y should always be higher than X. And sometimes it's difficult. It is difficult to do that, and difficult to be held accountable for it as a project team. But actually, in something that's supposed to drive sales, where we believe that introducing this device will increase conversion rates by this much, and it will increase average transaction values by this much. you can actually prove that, whether it's you can prove whether it's working or not quite easily by just looking at the figures, can't you?
Yes, you can. I think of all those things, sales is the worst measure. There are so many influencing factors on sales. If I had £1 for every time I justified a project based on a sales increase, I'd be wealthier by now. But things like ATV, certainly, as a direct measurement, are great. In fact, I'll expand on that a bit. I think sales as a valid measure of success is a bit questionable in the first place. And you mentioned the conversion thing earlier. The only true measure of how well you're doing is conversion, to my mind. I mean, I might have 100 people in the store and sell £100 that day. The following day, I might sell £200 and be patting myself on the back, but I might have had 1,000 people in the store that day. Therefore, I failed. I didn't serve 900 people. So to the combination of conversion and transaction achievement is the only valid measure, really.
Yeah, it is. And actually, just to take your point, I mean, the days of having many customers in the store are perhaps for a majority of retailers is probably
dwindling.
It's gone, hasn't it? It's not just dwindling. So therefore, it makes the customers you do get in the store even more important. You can convert them to sales. Even more important, you drive up the average transaction value.
It's your marketing effort, your reputation, your image that gets somebody into the store in the first place. You've done all that hard work. You got somebody over the threshold, and you got to do two things. You got to sell to them, so you got the act of measuring that conversion and the efficiency of your sales force, or the quality of your stock, or the reputation of your stock, the combination of the activity that you do in the store to convince that customer to buy something. And then the other factor at play, just to finish off, is more of an operational consideration. If you've made all that effort to get them into the store, you've made all that effort to convince them to buy something, and then you haven't got their size, or you can't get it for them, then you've again failed. You failed at the last hurdle. You failed because of the inefficiency of your supply chain, or the level of accuracy of stock you have in the store. So you really need to focus on all three, and the whole three make the journey to success.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a very valid point. And I was reading your article the other day about life in the 1990s. It got me back thinking to my own time in the 1990s. And I was working in a large retailer, just on a management training program, and I went to a meeting where the merchandise department, the retail ops department, and various others, heads of department meeting that I was sitting in on, and the guy from the retail ops team. They were saying sales were down, sales weren't where they were expected, and his only retort back to every question is, we can only sell what we've got. We can only sell what we've got. So basically saying that, when people come in and want a medium and we've only got large and small, we can't sell it. I mean, going back to when you look at your traditional salespeople working in traditional stores, I'm sure they used to it's probably get away with it. Sort of slightly
loose fitting is in this season, sir.
Exactly. But fundamentally, it goes back to your original question about the roles that systems play. I mean, providing stock accuracy is absolutely critical. Ensuring that the ranges are complete. It goes all the way back to the pre-season planning phase, all the way through. Systems have got a role to play, and it's not just a case of we've got a system that does that, we've got a system that does that, we've got a system that does that. These systems have actually got to be working with a common objective. The common objective has got to be that we've got to have the right product in the right place at the right price, or that sort of stuff, which people might say retail's changed. It hasn't changed that much.
I'd add a fourth one to that, because I agree with what you said, but the thing that has changed is then the ability to fulfill where you haven't got that. With the best will in the world, planning is a best guess at a point in time. You can never factor in all the influencing factors that will dictate what's sold from where and when. Therefore, you have to have the replenishment solutions, or the ability to reforecast on the fly to get that stock there. Or more importantly, in the world of omnichannel, you have to have the ability to then get that customer that product the next day if you haven't got it where they want it to be. So you need to close the loop of getting the product to the customer. Because in these days, when people are used to buying stuff off Amazon and anywhere else online, next day delivery is seen as good. as in acceptable. Whereas if historically, you want it there and then, and you went into a store that didn't have it, then would be a failure. But now, if that store fails, but can then say, I can get it to you tomorrow, that's deemed to be good service.
Well, it is. It is deemed to be good service. And it also, it's another area where good system support will actually ensure that happens. The days of actually having to go off and make numerous telephone calls, find where the stock is. Those days have gone. The idea of actually having a device in the store with access to the good quality data that we can make available can mean that a sale can happen regardless of whether you're stood in a store in Nottingham and the product you want's in Liverpool. Like you say, by tomorrow morning it could be delivered directly to your house, or delivered back to the store, or whatever option best suits the customer's requirements. There's absolutely no reason in this day and age why I should walk into one store and miss a sale. If that product exists somewhere in the environment of that retailer, in another store, in the warehouse, wherever it might be, I should be able to get it. Equally, if I'm buying online, I should be able to get it.
Yes, absolutely. Cool. And that's stepping into the world of making sure you've got all your stock available everywhere. So the provision of stock that's effectively stuck in your stores for online fulfillment as well is vital to that comprehensive omnichannel approach.
But that's now got to be a given for every retailer. Every retailer should must provide that service to a customer. Sorry.
I was going to say, stock is a hugely valuable asset. You're apart from the people, obviously, your physically most valuable asset. And to leave that languishing in a store somewhere that, a few weeks down the line is going to take a massive hit on markdown, is just silly when you think about it. So we have to implement systems that let you fulfill from everywhere. That's the obvious omnichannel approach. But we also have to make the best stab at putting it in the right place in the first place, as you say, and that's the planning piece, but also the replenishment piece. And I'll go one step further. Stuff we've been working on and talking about is making the next leap of replenishment and saying, let's look at it at a more granular level. We have the ability these days to process data much more speedily than we ever had before, and to hold masses of data to look at. So why shouldn't we look at external influencing factors? Why shouldn't we say that people in Newcastle like green things if it's hot the previous Wednesday, and start to position our stock more appropriately and more intelligently?
I was chatting to a retailer earlier in the week, and we were talking about the planning cycles, traditional planning cycles of pre-season and in-season, and he was saying that actually there is still a bit of pre-season, but actually it's one cycle now. You have to keep planning all the way through, and using data as predictive analytics, where you do keep changing, you do keep moving stock around, or changing prices, or dealing with demand, dealing with changes in demand is something which retailers are going to have to get used to. This is the need for flexibility, and one thing that the COVID crisis, the COVID pandemic has flagged up is this need to be able to react very, very quickly to things that you may not even have seen coming left or right of field, let alone things you could have reasonably planned for.
Yeah, I'm going to illustrate that point to its extreme, because absolutely it varies retailer by retailer, depending on the value of your product. At Harvey Nichols, where we might have only bought a £3,000 prior dress to sell across the estate, selling that, having accuracy and awareness of what that stock position was, whether it was 3 or 2 made a massive difference. The ability to sell that from wherever it was is fundamental, because if you sold one online, distance selling regulations dictate that the customer has 7 days, or last time I looked, 7 days to notify of your return and 21 days to return it. So you've got a £3,000 dress that's out of circulation for up to 21 days. It's then going to come back to the DC. It's got to be cleaned, potentially, depending on the state. It's got to be put back into the supply chain to get back to a store. And all that time, you're getting nearer and nearer a sale period. And in these days where, retail is becoming, sales in retail are becoming earlier and earlier, you might suddenly be going to 30, 40, 50% off in a matter of weeks. Yeah. So you've got a £3,000 dress that you've hardly had much of an attempt to sell, that you're now selling at half price. Yeah. And in Harvey Nichols terms, when you were at sort of 60% off, you were loss making, and you transitioned from sale and profit generating to a disposal operation. So cognizance and accuracy of data and the ability to fulfill from wherever that stock might be is just essential at that level.
It is, and actually, that's another topic for another time. Actually, that I when you look at the traditional product journey and the customer journey, and you look at where the traditional touch points used to be, and then you look at where they are now, and where they could be going forward with the use of systems and using data, then to my mind, that £3,000 dress should almost be sold before it's actually in the shop.
Well, yes, yeah. At that level, you can predict potentially who's going to buy it in the first place.
If you, I know years ago, Burberry did that private catwalk showing, didn't they? Where they invited certain customers to come along to a catwalk showing to create interest in products that they may or may not have bought, and use the customer's view whether to buy products or not. So, in effect, they created the desire to acquire even before they bought the stock. So by the time the stock was actually available for shipment, people wanted it shipped directly to their house, because if you're going to spend £3,000 on a dress, you want to wear it right at the beginning of the season when it's meant to be worn. Because it's a statement product. It's not like you bought a white T-shirt in Primark, which is a staple product. If you're going to buy a statement product, you want to see it early. There's a whole new area, and a whole other area we can talk about another time about how touch points have changed.
Yes, and actually, just slightly on that, unrelated, the technology can add value, because if you've also got the challenge of a 40-50% returns rate for an online sale of women's wear, then why shouldn't you sell that? Knowing that it's on its way back for a customer, if you see what I mean. So I've got my stock pool, I've sent it all out, I know 40% of it's going to come back, therefore I can potentially offer that for resale before I've even received the stock back. Start to look at how I can generate enough activity so it's all about selling at full price, or as near to full price as you can. So anything you can do to have that stock available, even if it's like a 3 to 5 delivery day service rather than the next day delivery service, because it's on its way back. Let's sell as much as we can. Anyway.
Yeah, selling as much as you can at full price has got to be the solution. I mean, another area that I'd like to explore further at another time is returns.
Yeah.
I know returns. The return volumes are dropping, but they are still high. And really, another role that technology can play in AI is actually by improving fit information and working with customers to understand their particular fit requirements.
Okay.
So actually, you could reduce the number of returns, which means that you're adding points in the margins, aren't you?
I made a note, Alan. We'll pick it up another time.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to bring this to conclusion quite shortly. I know last time we talked we waffled on a bit too long, I think. So I think we'll wrap this up.
We enjoyed it, didn't we?
I know, indeed.
We enjoyed it.
Whether I'd want to listen to us drone for 40 minutes is a different question. But so we're going to wrap it up now. I think in summary, what we've got to is that yes, technology has a role to play, particularly in modern retail, but it is there to enable and empower rather than, I'm talking about physical world rather than the digital world, enable and empower rather than replace, if that makes sense. But more importantly, it has to be underpinned with the ability to deliver promise. So if I'm going to offer a service to get something to the next day delivery, then it has to actually do that. I have to have confidence in being able to deliver that solution. And I have to underpin that with data and solutions that are accurate and available and real time. So I have to have all the things we've talked about before. I have to have visibility of my product data, my stock data, my customer data, and I have to be able to join that all together in a way that makes technology able to empower.
Yeah. That's about right. One last question. That £500 suit that you bought, have you still got it? Does it still fit?
It would fit, but I think it's not been confined to greater use.
Fancy dress.
All right, thanks, Alan.
Okay, cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Shepherding Chaos, the Retail 247 podcast. Join us next time for more tech views and insights from the people who know.